4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back after our first screening. My name is Jen Pollins, and I am the artistic director for the School for Contemporary Dance and Thought, and we are hosting this wonderful event on this beautiful sunny winter day. And we are now in our artist talk portion of the show. We have a bunch of amazing artists from all over the world actually here
3,
today
2,
to
1.
Hi everyone, welcome back after our first screening. My name is
Uh-oh.
Jen Collins, and I am
Mistaya, can you
the artistic director for the
Switch
School
off?
for
Yes.
Contemporary
And
and we are
bye.
hosting this
Bye.
wonderful event and this beautiful. And that happens on Zoom sometimes, even though we're all pros now. So I wanted to introduce Motion State Art directors and co-curators, Kenner Brodsky, maybe you want to give a wave, and Andy Russ. And they're going to take over the next about 20 minutes to introduce the artists that just showed work and let them talk a little bit about their work. If you want to add comments to the chat or post questions in the chat, we may get to them depending on how chatty our artists are and how much they want to share. So go ahead and please participate in that way, and we will hand it over to Andy and Allie. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us.
Hi, thank you, Jen, and thank you, artists, for being here. I'm Kenner Brodsky. I'm co-founder of Motion State Dance Film Series with Andy Russ.
Yes, and I'm Andy Russ, the other co-founder. Motion State Arts has been, we're moving into our 4th year. We originally started, Allie and I, presenting dance films, and have since the organization has expanded to producing live. But at its core, from the very start, we were interested in sharing our love of this medium, which has been going on for a while, but which is also very new to many people. And it's super exciting to see what creative paths the artists have followed to bring their work here, and the conversations we have with audiences who oftentimes are seeing this for the first time. So we're super excited to be able to bring this to all of you guys here today. Allie, anything you want to add before we turn this over to some of our guests?
I think we should just jump right in.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go from my screen. And so why don't we start with Omari, since you were first on our program and zooming in from the farthest away. Why don't you take it away?
I'd be there if I could as well. I'd just jump over there and we'd be sitting down with the microphones in hand. Hey everybody, my name is Omari Carter, and yes, I made the first film, End of the Block, which was made here in London, and that's where I'm based. And I am the founder and creator of the Motion Dance Collective, which is a screen dance production company here in the UK. And so my journey into screen dance, actually, I started off in hip hop dance, and I was a advert and music video choreographer, background dancer, and that was kind of my journey into the world of making dance film. But as I was making it, I realized there was kind of a gap in the language between the choreographic side of things and the cinematographic side of things when it came to perhaps the hierarchies that we experience in maybe traditional film and maybe even dance as well. And from then spouted this real kind of urge to want to tell longer stories with dance on film through hip hop forms, and not necessarily just the style itself, but the culture as a whole. And I guess with a sense of urbanity, being a city born and bred creator. So that's kind of been my past and way into making that work. And I've just recently graduated from the first MA in screen dance here in London at the London Contemporary Dance School. My certificate came, they cancelled graduation, but I'm buying my gown and doing my own thing, and we'll have a little Zoom thing. But yeah, so just finished that, and now I lecture dance on film at several universities now. So yes, the world has gone absolutely dance film mad, but there's been a very wonderful response from the screen dance makers that have been making it and developing it, and to kind of, in a way, to protect the form, because it's a practice in itself. And so that's one of the main things I love about it. It's not just the output, the process is something that we're now starting to kind of facilitate that hybridity. So thank you for having me, guys, and it's a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, I'll move to you. We lost Mistaya, so can you fill us in on how that project came to be?
Yes, of course, Mistaya is much better at describing it than I am, so that would be perfect, of course. There she is.
Here
She's
she's
back.
back, I think.
But I will quickly just introduce it, I guess, from my point of view. I come from a background of...
Chris, I'll move to you. We lost Mistaya.
I'm back.
So
That was
can
me.
you fill us in on how that project came to be?
Am I not here?
Yes, of course, Mistaya is much better. You're back in time. I am, so...
Mistaya, if you could mute your video on your computer, the playback.
But I will quickly just introduce it, I guess, from my point of view. I come from another time zone.
Chris, I'll move to you. We lost Mistaya. So
There we go.
I just shut the Facebook event down. Did that help?
Absolutely, it's perfect.
I think that's it. Yes, it was like you were slightly in the past, like someone's watching a soccer game.
I haven't done one of these before. Is this how
Nah.
this goes now?
Do you want to start? No. Okay. So I come from this. It's good to see you, Mistaya. It's been a while, although not that long because our kids go to the same school, so we sometimes see each other with math. Anyway, so I came to this from puppet films and stop motion animation. So another, I guess, practice and world of film that is connected but has its own little universe, like dance film. So this was a project where it really was. It was a project that had to do with the musician Patrick Watson, who makes the soundtracks and sound for all of our movies. And we approached Mistaya really as fans of her work and wanted to, it was just a nice excuse to approach her to collaborate on something.
That's nice.
That sound, how's it, what was it from your point of view, Mistaya?
Well, I just love those days where suddenly you get an email and it says, "Hello, my name is, we are looking to do," what? Yes. I was just so captivated by the whole idea from the beginning and meeting, and also I knew of their work from afar, but I hadn't really put two and two together. And then I walked into their studio, which was in a building that I walked past a million times in my life. And I felt like I was walking into the brain of two mad scientists. And then from there, and also it gave me an opportunity to delve into that work and into Das Triadisch Ballett and the whole Oscar Schlemmer world, which again, I knew a little bit about, but I was like, oh yes, I was hungry for it. So it was really fun from start to finish. Even wearing a paper mache costume.
The costume is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it took me probably up until the very last hour of shooting to figure out how to work in it, because it had suspenders that elastic in them. So when I would jump, I had to deal with the extra weight that was coming afterwards. You go to move to react into real time, but then there was this so to spin and not get overtaken by anyways, it was fun.
You were partnering with your outfit.
Yes, yeah. I mean, costumes usually are a bit like that. This one provided some limitations that I had to get creative with. The arm could only go this high. So I was like, okay, that's it. We're gonna work with that range. It was okay though. It was a pleasure.
Excellent, thank you. I'm gonna move over to Rebecca and Jacqueline if you want to tell us a little bit about your process.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. We created the Reels on the Board piece, which is part of From the Floor, which is an album that we created of dance and music on film. And I guess how we came to this project was this desire to be able to share what we do in a more maybe permanent way, or a more readily shareable kind of way than just a live performance. And so kind of working back from the idea that musicians have the opportunity to record an album, we said we should be able to do that too. And that's where the film came in as the visual component with the dance. So Jackie, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having us. We are two traditional Irish dancers. So we're old style Irish dancers. We operate within the traditional Irish music and dance community. And as Rebecca was saying, there really is not many outlets for sharing your work as a traditional dancer. There's, of course, live performance, but as most dancers will know, probably in any genre, there's a lot of challenges with that. And especially with percussive dance, you know, our dancing is percussive. That adds a whole other layer of, I guess, difficulty in trying to sort of transmit what we do and to get good quality footage and to, yeah, share our work. So as Rebecca said, we came up with this concept of a visual album, or actually I think Beyonce maybe came up with it, but we were doing something like that. And we chose this piece to share, I guess, because it was one of the more unique pieces where we placed our feet at the same level of the musician's fingers, and we were trying to kind of show the sort of deep connection between traditional Irish music and dance. So this piece sort of is trying to place that on the same level and change the frame a little bit. Thanks for having us.
And thank you. And Ellen.
Thank you, Ali, and thanks everyone for inviting me here. My piece was called In the Thick of the Middle, and I made it in 2016 as part of a live dance performance that I was also creating at that time. And I would just say that my interest with dance film are pretty broad, but one of them most recently I would say is working with materials. I feel like including dance and in the camera world, you can bring more materials into your work and play with what dance is. Like the rhythm of the editing can become the dance, the closeness of the camera can become the dance. I like how you can travel between worlds more quickly and easier, I guess, than you can in real life. And there's, for me, a lot of play with chance procedures and the editing process that is really exciting to me. So I think I'm making more and more dance films now, and I think it's a very accessible way to approach dance right now as well. And thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. So, Andy?
Yes. Question for the group. It sounds like everyone's been approaching this from slightly different places, which is amazing. It's definitely a medium as it evolves that invites a lot of collaboration. I assume that most of our guests here, they're not doing it all, right? You're working with, if you're a choreographer, you're working with a filmmaker or a director, or at least a camera person, you know, coming in from the filmmaking side, you're working with dancers. I was wondering if people could just talk a little bit about the collaborative process and how that's working out for people. Any surprises, any challenges?
I can add to that, perhaps.
Yeah.
I come from, initially in my past, I worked in like a really traditional dance structure of a ballet company. And since I left that world behind and moved on to other things, one of the things I love the most is that collaborative element of the dance film. Instead of feeling like I'm a piece in something where I'm so far removed from all the other people who do the costumes and the set and this everything. And then suddenly I got to be upfront with these people who are, and it felt so much more, I was really pleased by that sense of collectivity. Small teams, and I work, now that I make my own dance films, I work one-on-one with all these people, and I really come to appreciate their craft a great deal more, which I also appreciate. That's how I feel about it.
Thank you. Omari, I'm wondering if you can speak to the animation as part of your film.
Oh yeah, definitely. The film actually came from a music video I had made with the animation company Carson Waterman Productions, and they said, Amari, if you ever have an idea, just let us know. So I opened my dream book, and I was like, right, I've got one for you guys. But what was interesting is that that film couldn't really have been made with real people. Would have been too intense, you know. So I was able to tell more truths that were happening in a lighter way. So and there's moments where people laugh at certain things that happen to the people who are in animated, but they're all based on real stories of friends and people that I had encountered living in the States and in the UK. So yeah, it was really amazing to get a chance to collaborate with those guys, even though they didn't have an experience in dance. So they literally had to draw on everything that was choreographed by real people who were there on the day. So yeah, I think it's about what was nice is that we were both able to break down our own practice in order to give space for the other to interject. And I think that's what working with hybridity is so nice about, that we can actually find a new language, you know, or common language perhaps between one another, because really we're all speaking the same thing, but it's just French and Spanish, right? And then when we start to learn the other language, it's like, oh, we're saying the same stuff, but it's just a different languages. Yeah, so that was a wonderful experience for us. Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. Allie,
Andy.
you actually have a film in this as well. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to, this was your first dance film, is that right?
This was my first dance film. Yep, the film came out of a live piece, and a friend of mine for years has been whispering in my ear that I should make a dance film, and the stars kind of all aligned. I worked with an amazing director, filmmaker, Rich Berry, and it was inspired by the little glass house that my husband made that's on Cape Cod and on his parents' property. And I really just utilized what was around, and we filmed it all in one day, and it was really a labor of love. And I'm really proud of it, and looking to make the next one, though it's seeming more, because of COVID, a little bit more complicated. But yeah, the film was sort of necessary, I think, for me to make, and it feels good being on the other side of it.
Wow, you guys are like right on time with my, oh look, my timer just.
We are just good like that, Jen.
I mean, there's so much provocative comments going on. Thank you so much. I love hearing just about the hybridity of this medium, and about that it's not, you know, I've done a few dance films myself, and there are techniques to it. I appreciate how each one of you has used the medium in such different ways. Like the collection of films just sort of show how flexible and large the medium can be. I appreciated, I think, what Ellen said just about how film lets us use different spaces in different ways than dance does. And I'll also just say how film also lets us direct the eye of our audience in such a different and powerful way. You know, I feel like a beginner really myself in this form, and feel like it's a powerful way to get movement-based art into a larger public eye. So it's very exciting, and thank you all for utilizing the power. Is there any last comment that any of you want to make before we turn to Cynthia? Love to hear anything else.
I just want to thank everyone one last time for being here and zooming in with us. And I hope this is the beginning of many more conversations that we can have together. And thank you, Jen, for having Motion State, for several different programs coming up. And yeah, we're looking forward to it.
So I mentioned in the introduction before we screened your work that we got a NIFA Nest grant, And we will be working with Motion State through the whole season into the extended COVID season, extends for us into next fall at this point, premiering a new set of work that they're just putting the call out for soon. So we're excited to work more with you all. And thank you so much, artists. And you can stay on the line. We're going to talk to Cynthia for a few minutes, and maybe if there's a few moments at the end and there is another comment, since we have you here, we're going to take about 10 more minutes. If there's another comment that anyone wants to make, be happy to engage in dialogue between y'all. But I wanted to introduce Cynthia Mclaughlin in the polka dots. Maybe you can wave. Just yeah. And Cynthia is the Grand Priestess. No, I'm not. I'm joking. Cynthia is a wonderful artist from Coleraine, Massachusetts, and we will be sharing a 20-minute film that she made with some collaborators next. And I wanted to give Cynthia a chance to talk about her film, and I have a couple questions to ask, but I'll let you introduce yourself first a little more and the film.
Hi, everyone. It's really amazing to be in this company. I wish, you know, I don't know, I wish we could just go out and chat more about each other's work in a different sort of way. So someday for sure. It's really great to be here. And just to piggyback off of the topic, and I know, Jen, you have questions. Jen mentioned what Ellen had said of the jumping between worlds. And I think that is definitely something that appeals to many of us who've been making work for the stage for years and years. And then there's also just this question about what the choreographic eye brings to the director role. So for instance, in my piece, I was the director as well. And I think that the sort of value system is a little different, perhaps. I mean, I'm sure every director, it's different as far as what they prioritize, what they're listening to, what they're responding to. But I'm just finding, as I'm immersing myself more in this world of dance film, that I am curious about the choreographic director viewpoint. I just think that makes for like some interesting questions. So it's great to see all this work.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your film? We haven't seen it yet, so hi audience out there, you also can comment and ask questions, and we can try to answer them. But it will be nice. You saw the work and then heard the artist speak, and now you will have the reverse. You will hear the artist speak and then see the work. So Cynthia, how would you like to introduce your work?
Yeah, well, this work began as a piece that was meant for live performance. I was making work at Keene State College, where I'm a professor, and on students, and then had to shift and reimagine it for film. And I think that translation then became very much about what the piece became about in a way. You'll notice that it switches between what we see as a really sort of traditional stage space. And then we went to sort of all these places that we could go in times of COVID, hairdressers and grocery stores, and there's a hot dog stand, I think, in there. So this play of what we think of as sort of reality, right? Or our day-to-day essentials. And then we can so often think of this traditional stage space as artifice. But this work ended up really making me think and question that idea, and think more about the fact that the stage space for me has always felt like the most sort of real place for, I think many performers. That's where I feel most sort of honest and authentic. And there's a quote that you'll see at the beginning of the film from this exquisite documentary called Cave of Forgotten Dreams, which I highly recommend if you haven't seen it, which is a documentary about prehistoric cave paintings. And there's this segment in the movie where they talk about how some of the art that you're seeing, someone created, and then thousands of years later, someone added to. And so there's this idea that that it gets passed down, and that it's this sort of torch that gets passed. And it's not so much about ownership, but about receiving and then sending off to the next lifetime, the next generation in these caves. And I just started thinking so much about our performance spaces as our caves, right? And how we listen and receive and then pass on. And hopefully you all might feel a little of that when you're watching it.
Beautiful, thank you. We do have a few more minutes, and the question of time, Cynthia just brought it up in a way for referencing the documentary, but I am curious how time, if time relates to you in the work that you presented or in film in general, like how you relate to it, or how long does it take to make work, or when do you know when it's done? That's just my own question. So any of those, if anyone wants to take another nibble at sharing something with our audience before we move on, it'd be great.
I'll start it. As Andy knows, I'm really into time. I always find that things are too long, so I try to keep things on the shorter side of it. I was just having this conversation about this next film that I'd like to make, and for me personally, like the 8 to 10 minute, I think is a sweet spot. But in my live work, I'm finding that I'm really playing with time and really trying to push that boundary of how long can you sit with something. And I think, Andy, you're like this too, like how long can you sit with something before it becomes too long or too uncomfortable. So I feel like my live work versus my film work are kind of two different sensibilities. But I like being challenged by time lately. I like taking the time to slow down and be in it.
I think it's interesting in terms of the audience, the expectations that audiences bring to the two. I mean, we're surrounded by video in all, more and more ways, and especially with the YouTube generation and all the creators and the audiences there, sort of redefining what is acceptable, but also in terms of duration and things. I think that definitely has a strong effect on what people make. Because I feel oftentimes, and maybe it's, I don't know what that says about the medium, but the live performance, oftentimes people come with, well, they definitely come with different set of expectations, but often come with no expectations. So in a way, you can kind of get away on one level, maybe with more, because you're people looking to you to define what you're going to see in a live situation. And I would love to hear other people's comments when they're watching a film or video. And maybe that, Ali, speaks to you wanting to be shorter. Yeah, I'm curious about that. This new sets of expectations. Yeah, Omari, I saw you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's really about the output and the context it goes on, the type of screen it's being screened on, right? And
Right.
a lot of the time we don't think about the types of screen. I used to make things and go, yeah, it can go on the phone, it can go in the cinema, but like you were saying with the theatrical space, I think it's quite similar to the cinematic space. You're in a similar space audience-wise, right? You're sitting down, you've paid money for a ticket, and you know that you're going to be here for some time. Where now with the YouTube and the Instagram, it's a different kind of design, so that the edit is designed differently for those outputs. And it's so interesting because now I'm trying to think, Ali, in opposition, because like a lot of the hip hop I see is fast. And so I think, well, how can I slow that down in my work now, like, and take time in the spaces where time isn't usually taken? Even if you've only got 1 minute, how much of that minute do you let breathe? Yeah, okay, that was it.
All right, well, I think I'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. And as you can see, we could have a hour-long discussion that would be very interesting about all of this. So hopefully we'll have you all back again sometime. And audience, just keep your eyes open for artist talks, because it's always illuminating to be able to hear what's behind the product that we're experiencing. Thanks again for being here and sharing your time with us, artists, and we will hand it back over to screen the last screen of our evening. Cynthia, do you want to just introduce the name and how long it is and things like that just before we go?
Sure. It's the title is Brangelina, and it's about 18 minutes with the credits. So it does invite you to stay in it for sure.
Great. Great. And there are ways to get in touch with us all through our websites, and I think that they will be posted in the YouTube live links. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the show.